Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Station, staring at the strange message on his screen. The transmission had arrived 3 hours ago from somewhere deep in space. It was not from any human colony or ship. "Play it again. Lisa," he said to Captain Lisa Hayes, his second in command. The holographic display flickered to life. A tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms appeared. Its voice was smooth but formal. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council. We speak for 12 worlds that have lived in peace for 3,000 years. Today, we face our darkest hour. The Void Reapers threaten to destroy all life in our galaxy. We need your help." The alien paused, its large black eyes looking directly at the camera. "We invite Earth to join our war. In return, we offer full membership in the Council, our advanced technology, and rights to settle in our territories. Please respond quickly. Time is running out." The message ended. Admiral Morrison rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 18 hours straight since the transmission arrived. "What do you think, Lisa?" he asked. Captain Hayes pulled up star charts on her tablet. "The message came from the Centauri sector. That's 200 light-years away. These aliens have technology we can only dream of. But why ask us? We're just one planet." "Maybe they're desperate," Hayes said. "According to the message, they've been fighting these Void Reapers for decades. They wouldn't reach out to a species they've never met unless things were really bad." Morrison nodded. 3 months ago, human ships had detected strange energy signatures near the outer colonies. The readings didn't match any known technology. Now it made sense. The aliens had been watching them. At that moment, Dr. Sam Rodriguez entered the command center. As Earth's top expert on alien life, he had been studying the transmission all morning. "Admiral, I've analyzed their language patterns and body language," Sam said. "These beings are telling the truth about being desperate, but there's something else." "What do you mean?" Sam pulled up biological data on his portable screen. "I've been studying their physical structure. Based on bone density and muscle development, these aliens are not natural fighters. They're built for peaceful activities, not war. So they're asking us to fight their battles?" "It's more than that," Sam continued. "I think they've been watching our military exercises. Remember the war games we ran last month near Jupiter? We tested new weapons, practiced battle tactics, ran combat simulations." Admiral Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "You think they intercepted our communications?" "I'm sure of it. They know what human military forces can do. The question is, do they really understand what they're asking for?" Captain Hayes brought up Earth's military records on the main display. "Sam's right to be worried. Our last major conflict was the Mars Colony War 5 years ago. We used orbital bombardment, chemical weapons, and cyber warfare. The casualties were heavy on both sides." "But we won," Morrison said. "Yes, but the methods we used..." Hayes shook her head. "Most civilized species would consider them war crimes." Dr. Rodriguez nodded grimly. "That's what concerns me. These council aliens seem to value peace and cooperation. They've probably never seen the kind of warfare humans are capable of." The 3 humans stood in silence, considering the implications. Earth's military had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. From ancient battles with swords and spears to modern conflicts with plasma weapons and AI-controlled drones, humanity had always found new ways to fight. "There's something else," Morrison said finally. "Intelligence reports suggest these Void Reapers are machines, not living beings. They don't negotiate, don't surrender, don't show mercy. Against an enemy like that, human tactics might be exactly what's needed." Captain Hayes accessed classified military files. "Our current arsenal includes antimatter missiles, kinetic bombardment satellites, and neural disruption weapons. We have battle plans for fighting in space, on planets, and in asteroid fields. We've even developed strategies for fighting enemies we can't communicate with." "The Geneva Conventions were updated last year," she continued, "but they still allow for extreme measures against non-human threats that pose existential risks to humanity." Dr. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "You're talking about unleashing human military doctrine on a galactic scale. These council aliens have no idea what that means. Admiral Morrison walked to the large window overlooking Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below, peaceful and beautiful. But he knew that same planet had produced the most effective warriors in known history. "Contact President Kate Sullivan," he ordered. "Tell her we need an emergency meeting of the Security Council. This decision is too big for the military alone." 2 hours later, the most powerful leaders on Earth gathered in the secure conference room beneath the White House. President Sullivan, a former general herself, listened carefully as Morrison explained the situation. "The Council is offering its membership in their government," Morrison said. "They control hundreds of star systems, thousands of planets. The technology they're offering could advance human civilization by centuries. But they want us to fight their war," said Defense Secretary Bill Carter, "against an enemy that has been defeating them for 47 years. President Sullivan studied the alien message transcript. "What do our analysts think about these Void Reapers?" "They're described as a machine intelligence that consumes everything in its path," replied Morrison. "No negotiations, no mercy, no compromise. They harvest entire populations to build more of themselves." "Sounds like the perfect enemy for human military doctrine," said the president quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone present understood what she meant. Human warfare had evolved to handle the worst possible scenarios. When facing an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, human forces were trained to use any method necessary to achieve victory. "The question is," continued President Sullivan, "are we ready to introduce human military tactics to the galaxy? Once we show them what we're capable of, there's no going back." Defense Secretary Carter pulled up strategic projections. "Based on what we know about the Void Reapers, our conventional forces could probably handle them. But it would require tactics that might shock our new alien allies, such as total warfare, targeting infrastructure, supply lines, manufacturing centers, using fear as a weapon, accepting heavy casualties to achieve strategic objectives, all standard human military doctrine. But these aliens seem to fight very differently." President Sullivan made her decision. "Prepare a diplomatic mission. I want our best people studying this situation before we commit to anything. But also alert the fleet. If we do this, we do it right." "Who should lead the mission?" asked Morrison. "Captain Ben Parker. His ship, the UNS Horizon, is our most advanced vessel. Send Ambassador Ryan Clark with him, and General Amy Foster for military consultation." The meeting ended with quiet efficiency. As the leaders filed out, none of them could have imagined that their decision would terrify the most powerful government in the galaxy. 3 days later, the UNS Horizon departed Earth's solar system, carrying humanity's response to the Galactic Council's desperate plea for help. Behind them, Earth's military began preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the depths of space, the Galactic Council waited anxiously for humanity's answer, unaware that they had just invited the most dangerous predator in the galaxy to join their fight. The UNS Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. Captain Ben Parker stood on the bridge, watching the massive alien space station grow larger on the main screen. It was bigger than any human structure he had ever seen. "That thing must be 300 kilometers across," said Lieutenant Commander Julie Mason, the ship's tactical officer. "The Galactic Council's capital," replied Ambassador Ryan Clark. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. 20 years ago, he had been a Marine. Now he was Earth's best diplomat. Home to representatives from 12 different alien species. General Amy Foster joined them on the bridge. She was small but tough, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. Her uniform displayed more medals than anyone else on the ship. "Any word on their military capabilities?" she asked. Captain Parker pulled up the data they had collected during their journey. "Their ships are fast and well armed, but they seem to avoid direct combat. Most of their weapons are designed to disable rather than destroy." "Interesting," Foster said. "That tells us something about how they think." The communication system activated. Ambassador Zethkar's face appeared on the screen, the same blue-skinned alien who had sent the original message to Earth. "Welcome. Humans of Earth, we are honored by your presence. Please follow our guide ships to the diplomatic docking bay. Two sleek alien vessels appeared alongside the horizon. They were beautiful, with smooth curves and glowing energy fields, but Captain Parker noticed they carried very light weapons. They're not expecting trouble, he told his crew. Stay alert anyway. An hour later, the human delegation walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime. The station was filled with aliens of different shapes and sizes. Some looked like tall insects with crystal skin. Others resembled walking trees with multiple arms. A few species looked almost human, but with different colored skin and extra eyes. Ambassador Clark observed everything carefully. They're all herbivores or peaceful omnivores, he whispered to General Foster. Look at their teeth, their body language. None of these species evolved as predators. That explains a lot, Foster whispered back. They entered the main council chamber, a huge circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Representatives from 12 worlds sat waiting for them. At the center stood Council Speaker Veltar, a graceful being that looked like a giant praying mantis made of living crystal. Humans of Earth, Veltar said in a musical voice, we welcome you to the Galactic Council. We hope you can help us in our darkest hour. Ambassador Clark stepped forward. We are honored to be here. Please tell us about your situation. Veltar activated a holographic display showing star maps and battle reports. The Void Reapers appeared 47 years ago at the edge of our territory. They are pure machine intelligence with no interest in negotiation or compromise. They consume entire star systems, turning all matter into more of themselves. The display showed scenes of devastation, planets stripped bare, space stations torn apart, refugee ships fleeing burning worlds. We have followed the ancient laws of warfare, continued another delegate, a tall being with blue fur and 6 arms. We declared war formally, established proper battle zones, and gave the Reapers every chance to negotiate. They ignored all protocols. General Foster raised her hand. What kind of military response have you used? We engaged their fleets in deep space, away from civilian populations, replied War Leader Korthal, a heavily built alien with armor-like skin. We use precise weapons to disable their ships. We evacuate non-combatants before any battle. We follow the Council military code at all times. Foster exchanged glances with Ambassador Clark. And how has that worked? We have lost 63 star systems and over 2 billion civilians, Veltar admitted sadly. Our traditional methods are not effective against an enemy that shows no mercy. Ambassador Clark cleared his throat. Perhaps we could discuss human military doctrine and see how it might apply to your situation. The council representatives leaned forward with interest. Human military strategy focuses on achieving victory as quickly as possible, Clark began. We target enemy command structures, supply lines, and manufacturing centers. We use psychological warfare to break enemy morale. When necessary, we accept civilian casualties if it leads to faster victory and fewer total deaths. Several aliens looked confused. A delegate with translucent skin and large eyes spoke up. You deliberately target non-military installations? If they support the enemy war effort, yes, replied General Foster. We also use orbital bombardment of strategic targets, chemical weapons against fortified positions, and electronic warfare to disrupt enemy communications. The crystal mantis, Veltar, tilted its head. You attack places where non-combatants might be present? We try to minimize civilian deaths, Foster explained, but we don't let concern for non-combatants prevent us from achieving military objectives. In human doctrine, the fastest way to end a war saves more lives in the long run. A disturbed murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The representative of the Althari, a species that looked like walking flowers, whispered something to his aide about savage methods. Ambassador Clark tried to calm the situation. Let me give you some historical context. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned that halfway measures often make conflicts last longer and cause more suffering. He activated his own holographic display showing human military history. During our Second World War, we used strategic bombing to destroy enemy industry. We targeted factories, power plants, transportation networks, and communication centers. The aliens watched in growing horror as Clark showed images of destroyed cities and massive military operations. We also developed the concept of total war, Clark continued. This means using all available resources and targeting all aspects of enemy society that support their war effort. What about prisoners? Asked War Leader Korthal. We take prisoners when practical, replied Foster. But against an enemy like these Void Reapers, who can't be negotiated with, we would focus on complete destruction of their forces. Veltar's crystal body seemed to dim. You speak of warfare as if it were absolute. Against the right enemy it has to be, Foster said simply. These Reapers you're fighting sound like the kind of threat that requires extreme measures. Half-hearted resistance will only get more of your people killed. The silence in the chamber was uncomfortable. Finally, Diplomat Hesron of the peaceful Althari spoke. These methods you describe, they seem very aggressive. Are all human military operations conducted this way? When facing an existential threat, yes, answered Clark. We call it proportional response. The greater the threat, the more extreme our methods become. Foster added, we have detailed protocols for urban warfare, fighting in civilian areas, dealing with enemies who use non-combatants as shields, and handling threats that cannot be negotiated with. Several delegates exchanged worried looks. The representative from the aquatic Nethys species made a gesture that seemed to indicate distress. Council Speaker Veltar stood up slowly. This is much to consider. Perhaps we should take a recess to discuss these concepts among ourselves. As the human delegation was escorted to guest quarters, none of them noticed the emergency session that immediately began in the council's private chambers. The 12 species representatives sat in stunned silence as they began to understand what they had invited into their war. Are we making a terrible mistake? Whispered the Althari delegate. War Leader Korthal stared at the tactical data from the human presentation. I think we may have found allies more dangerous than our enemies. The alarm rang through Nexus Prime at 0400 hours. Captain Ben Parker woke instantly in his guest quarters and reached for his communicator. Parker here. What's the situation? Emergency transmission from the Kepler 442 system, came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Julie Mason. The Void Reapers are attacking. 3 council fleets are responding, but they're asking for any assistance we can provide. Parker was already putting on his uniform. Tell them we're on our way. Get the crew to battle stations. Within minutes, the UNS Horizon was racing toward the Kepler 442 system at maximum speed. Ambassador Ryan Clark and General Amy Foster joined Parker on the bridge as they dropped out of hyperspace. The scene before them was chaos. Dozens of Void Reaper ships surrounded the inhabited planet, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The machines looked like moving cities made of metal and death. Each one was the size of a human battleship, but covered in strange spikes and glowing energy weapons. 3 council fleets had formed defensive lines around the planet. Their ships were beautiful but small compared to the Reapers. Bright energy beams flashed between the opposing forces, but the alien weapons seemed to barely damage the machine. Ships. Council Fleet Command, this is Captain Parker of the UNS Horizon, he said into the communication system. We're here to assist. A familiar voice responded. It was War Leader Korthal speaking from his command ship. Human vessel, please take position in the 3rd defensive line. Follow standard engagement protocols. Target only military vessels. Avoid civilian areas on the planet below. Captain Parker looked at his tactical officer, Major Tom Wilson. What do you see, Tom? Wilson studied his displays. The council ships are fighting at long range, trying to disable Reaper vessels without destroying them completely. The Reapers are ignoring the rules and going straight for the planet. On the main screen, they could see Reaper ships descending into the planet's atmosphere. Energy beams reached down to harvest entire cities while the council fleets tried to intercept them without causing collateral damage. This isn't working, said General Foster grimly. They're losing people while They follow their rules. Captain Parker made his decision. Tom, identify the largest Reaper command ship. Julie, prepare all weapons systems. We're going in. Sir, the Council requested we follow their protocols, warned his communications officer. The Council's protocols are getting people killed, Parker replied. We do this the human way. The UNS Horizon suddenly accelerated at full speed directly toward the center of the Reaper formation. Every weapon on the ship began firing at once. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, and kinetic weapons all targeted the same massive Reaper vessel. But instead of stopping at safe range like the Council ships, the Horizon kept accelerating. All hands, brace for impact, announced Parker over the ship's intercom. We're going to ram. The human ship smashed into the Reaper command vessel at incredible speed. The collision destroyed half of the Horizon's hull, but it also tore a massive hole in the alien machine. Emergency lights flashed as both ships spun through space, locked together. Hull breach on decks 5 through 12, reported the damage. Control officer. Life support failing in multiple sections. Launch the boarding parties, ordered General Foster. Major Wilson looked at her in shock. Ma'am, that ship is filled with hostile machines and radiation. It's a death trap. Exactly why we need to take it fast, Foster replied. Commander Julie Mason led the first boarding party through the wreckage. The Marines wore full combat armor and carried every weapon they could fit. Instead of trying to capture Reaper technology like the Council forces did, they simply destroyed everything they found. The Marines moved through the machine ship like a destructive force of nature. They used explosives to blast through bulkheads, flame units to melt electronic systems, and electromagnetic weapons to shut down Reaper computers. There are civilians in the processing center, reported Sergeant Danny Walsh over the radio. The machines are harvesting them for raw materials. Save them, ordered Mason without hesitation. Use whatever methods necessary. The Marines fought their way through corridors filled with mechanical defenders. They ignored their own casualties and pushed forward, using grenades and explosives in areas where Council forces would have retreated to preserve alien technology. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Nick Turner coordinated with the surviving Council ships. His suggestions horrified the alien commanders. Ramming speed is an acceptable tactic, he told War Leader Korthal over an open channel. Use your damaged ships as guided missiles. Target their supply vessels even if they're near the planet. But the civilian population, protested Korthal. We'll all die if we don't stop the Reapers now, Turner replied coldly. Calculate acceptable losses and act accordingly. The battle raged for 6 hours. The human boarding parties fought room by room through 3 different Reaper ships. They rescued over 2,000 civilians but lost 60 Marines in the process. Captain Parker coordinated the overall assault from his damaged bridge. Focus fire on their manufacturing ships, he ordered the combined fleet. Destroy their ability to build more units. Those ships contain valuable technology, said a Council commander. And they're building machines to kill your people, Parker replied. Destroy them. The combined human Council fleet began targeting Reaper industrial vessels. The aliens watched in amazement as human tactics actually began to work. For the first time in the war, Reaper ships were retreating. When the last machine ship fled the system, an exhausted silence fell over the battlefield. The planet below was damaged but saved. Thousands of civilians lived because of the human intervention, but the Council commanders felt sick watching the human methods. War Leader Korthal's voice came over the communication system. Human vessel, your tactics were effective, but your casualties were extremely high. Acceptable losses, replied General Foster. We saved the planet and drove off the enemy. That's victory. You fought in damaged areas of your own ship. You sent soldiers into radiation zones. You used explosives near civilian populations. We did what was necessary to win, said Captain Parker simply. The Council fleet slowly regrouped around the planet. Medical ships moved to help the wounded while engineering vessels began repairs. But many of the alien commanders were having private conversations about what they had witnessed. Admiral Zethkar contacted the human ship directly. Captain Parker, we are grateful for your assistance. But we need to discuss your combat methods. What about them? You seem to accept casualties that we would consider unacceptable. You use tactics that risk civilian lives. You destroy valuable enemy assets instead of capturing them. Parker looked at Ambassador Clark, who nodded for him to continue. Admiral, we've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned that the fastest way to end a conflict saves the most lives overall. Yes, we take risks. Yes, we accept casualties. But we win. At what cost? At whatever cost is necessary, replied General Foster, joining the conversation. Your people have been dying for 47 years because you're not willing to do what it takes to end this war. There was a long pause before Admiral Zethkar responded. We will need to discuss this with the full council. As the human ship began repairs, emergency meetings started throughout the council fleet. The alien commanders had seen human military doctrine in action, and they were terrified by its effectiveness. In the depths of space, Void Reaper scout ships observed the battle and transmitted data back to their main fleet. The machines began adapting their tactics to counter this new, human threat. The war was about to change in ways no one could predict. 2 months after the battle at Kepler 442, everything changed. The Void Reapers had learned about human tactics and began adapting their strategy. Instead of slow, methodical attacks, they now struck fast and hard at human targets throughout the galaxy. President Kate Sullivan received daily reports in the White House Situation Room. Fleet Admiral Carol Wright stood before a wall of screens showing battle zones across 3 sectors of space. The Reapers are focusing on us now, Wright reported. They've identified humans as their primary threat. Every engagement shows they're studying our methods and trying to counter them. How are our forces performing? Asked the president. Excellent. We haven't lost a single major battle. Human commanders are adapting faster than the machines can keep up. But the council is getting nervous about our methods. On the main screen, combat footage showed human Marines fighting Reaper machines in the ruins of a space station. The soldiers moved with brutal efficiency, using explosives and chemical weapons in ways that made the alien observers uncomfortable. Admiral Wright switched to another battle report. Commander Steve Hayes is requesting approval for Operation Prometheus. He believes it could end the war permanently. President Sullivan studied the classified file that appeared on her personal screen. Her face grew serious as she read the details. This is extreme even by our standards, she said quietly. Yes, ma'am, but it would guarantee complete victory over the Void Reapers. At the same time, 300 light-years away, Commander Hayes presented his plan to a joint Human Council military committee aboard Nexus Prime. The conference room was filled with officers from both sides, but the tension was obvious. Operation Prometheus uses captured Reaper technology combined with human weapons design, Hayes explained to the assembled group. We can create devices that will render entire star systems uninhabitable for both organic and mechanical life. Council representatives looked at each other with growing alarm. War leader Korthal spoke first. You want to destroy star systems? Make them permanently dead. Not destroy, corrected Dr. Maria Lopez, the chief scientist on the project. Sterilize. The weapons would eliminate all complex matter in affected areas. No planets, no asteroids, no space dust, just empty void. General Amy Foster added, we would create a buffer zone around Council space. Any Reaper that enters the sterilized sectors would be instantly destroyed. It's the ultimate defensive barrier. Ambassador Zethkar's blue skin seemed to turn pale. How many systems would you need to sterilize? Approximately 400. Star systems, replied Hayes, including 73 that currently have planets. The silence in the room was complete. Finally, diplomat Hesran of the Althari found his voice. You're talking about making 400 solar systems completely lifeless forever. Those planets could someday support colonies, research stations, mining operations. Better empty than controlled by machines that want to kill everything, Foster replied bluntly. Dr. Lopez activated a holographic display showing the proposed dead zone. It stretched across thousands of light years, creating an impassable barrier between Council space and Reaper territory. The sterilization effect would last approximately 50,000 years, she explained. Long enough to ensure the Reapers can never threaten Council worlds again. War Leader Korthal stood up slowly. This is not warfare. This is something else entirely. This is victory, said Commander Hayes simply. Total, permanent, absolute victory. The Reapers would be contained forever and Council civilization would be safe. The meeting ended with no decision. The Council representatives requested time to discuss the proposal among themselves. As the humans left the conference room, they couldn't hear the panicked conversations beginning throughout Nexus Prime. 3 days later, an emergency session of the full Galactic Council convened. All 12 species sent their highest representatives. Council Speaker Veltar called for order as the chamber buzzed with worried voices. We must address the human military proposals, Veltar announced. Operation Prometheus represents a fundamental change in how warfare is conducted in our galaxy. The representative from the aquatic Nethys species spoke first. These humans fight without limits. They accept any cost, use any method, destroy anything necessary to achieve victory. They have been effective, admitted War Leader Korthal. Every battle against the Reapers has been won since human forces joined the conflict. At what price? I demanded Hesron. They're proposing to sterilize 400 star systems. They fight in ways that risk civilian populations. They use weapons we would consider war crimes. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued that human methods, while extreme, were the only way to defeat the Void Reapers. Others insisted that such tactics threatened the very foundation of galactic civilization. Finally, Council Speaker Veltar called for silence. We have a choice to make. We can continue this war with human assistance and accept their methods, or we can ask them to withdraw and face the Reapers with our traditional approaches. The vote was close, but the decision was unanimous when it came. Every species agreed on what had to be done. Ambassador Ryan Clark received the official message while aboard the UNS Horizon. He read it twice before believing what he saw. Then, he called Captain Ben Parker and General Foster to his quarters. They want us to leave, he said simply, handing them the communication pad. The message was formal, but clear. The Galactic Council requested that human forces withdraw from the conflict immediately. They thanked Earth for its assistance, but stated that human military doctrine was incompatible with Council values and galactic stability. They'd rather lose than win our way, said General Foster, shaking her head. Can't say I blame them, replied Parker quietly. We've shown them things they never wanted to see. Back on Earth, President Sullivan convened her Security Council one final time to discuss the war. The room was filled with military leaders and government officials who had watched the conflict unfold across the galaxy. The Council has made their choice, she announced. They want us out of their war. Defense Secretary Bill Carter pulled up strategic reports. Our forces could end this conflict in 6 months. The Reapers are already retreating from sectors where they've encountered human tactics. We could save billions of lives. But they don't want to be saved that way, Sullivan replied. They've seen what human warfare looks like, and it terrifies them more than the machines do. Admiral Wright added, Intelligence reports suggest the Council is more afraid of what we might do after the war than what the Reapers are doing now. The President made her final decision. We honor their request. Human forces will withdraw from Council space, but we establish a defensive perimeter around our own colonies using whatever methods necessary. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Clark delivered humanity's response to the full Galactic Council. The chamber was packed with representatives who watched nervously as the human diplomat approached the speaker's platform. The United Earth government accepts the Council's request, Clark announced. Human military forces will withdraw from your conflict with the Void Reapers. We will return to our own space and defend our colonies as we see fit. A wave of relief swept through the alien representatives. Council Speaker Veltar stood to respond. We are grateful for your understanding. We hope our species can maintain peaceful relations in the future. So do we, replied Clark. But understand this, when the Void Reapers finish with your territory and turn toward human space, we will handle them in our own way, with our own methods. using whatever tactics we consider necessary. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. The Council had avoided the horror of human warfare, but they had also ensured that humanity would face the machine threat alone. As the human delegation departed Nexus Prime for the last time, emergency defense planning began throughout Council space. They had chosen to face extinction rather than victory achieved through human methods. The galaxy would never be the same.